Okay, Chair. Now,
Thank you. Well, thanks to everyone for arriving virtually. Now we have quorum, we can go forward. The Halifax Regional Municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. And our first item of business is the election of a vice chair. So I'll open the floor for nominations for this position. Do I have any nominations for vice chair?
I nominate Azuka. I nominate Lois.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that?
I thank you. I appreciate it, but I will be stepping down at the end of this calendar year, and that would leave you without a vice chair.
All right.
May I nominate David Atkinson?
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm in the same boat as Lois. November's the end of my term.
Chair, do you mind if I suggest that we take anybody who may be stepping down at the end of the year? But so at the end of the year, by then we'll have enough time to look for a replacement. Did you understand? Did you get me?
Got it. So basically saying, if anyone wants to reconsider and just serve out the term, and then we'll deal with it in November.
Yeah.
I think as long as protocol supports it, that would be a good approach. And I thank you again, but I also stand back. I'm stepping down tonight as the president of the Royal Nova Scotia Historical Society after 3 years. And I need a break.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
So,
well
any other-
deserved.
What's that? Yeah, any other
Well
nominations?
Lois should have honorary life membership.
I might decline that too.
I'll just make you emeritus, that's all.
Here. That's better.
Yeah. No responsibilities, no duties.
No.
So no other nominations.
Well, who is available? Who is interested?
Yeah.
I'll happily nominate someone who wants it. Oh dear.
It's not a stampede.
David, you wouldn't take it for 6 months?
Oh, I'll take it for 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay.
There.
Oh, then there. I'll second Councillor Hensby's nomination of David.
Okay, let's take
That's
this.
avoided.
Thank you. And are there any further nominations? Any further nominations? Okay, can we have a vote for this? All in favor of accepting this motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Motion is passed. The minutes were circulated. And are there any errors or omissions noted in them? None so being, I call for a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a mover for that?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And a seconder?
I
I'll
second.
second.
And the
It
question?
goes to the new vice chair.
What's that?
The seconder can be the new vice chair. Our
Okay.
voices collided.
Okay. We'll take that to a vote. All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. According to my notes from the legislative assistant, there are no additions or deletions. And anyone else have any additions or deletions? Okay. So can we have a motion to approve the order of business as it stands?
I will so move.
Thank you, Lois. And a seconder?
By Pam, second.
Thank you. And I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Accepting the motion. Any opposed? Motion carried. Business arising out of the minutes is noted as being none. You do hear a dog. It's our foolish poodle. He doesn't like being locked out of my office. And it's a call for the declaration of conflict of interests. And any member feel they have a conflict of interest with today's agenda? Okay, none so being. Item 6 is the consideration of deferred business, and that is no, it is none. And correspondence. And was there any correspondence? My notes say there was none.
Yes, there was correspondence which was received and circulated for item 19912. Sorry.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. 912. And any petitions from committee members or from other people?
There were no petitions received by the clerk's office or presentation.
Okay, we're clearing petitions and presentations. Okay, information items brought forward shows as none. Was there anything else there? That brings us to reports. We have a 9.1 staff report, financial incentives program for Schmidtville and Old South Suburb Heritage Conservation districts. We have staff members who will be speaking to that.
Yes, I will be speaking to that.
Okay. Floor is yours.
I'll just share my screen here.
Sure.
Hopefully you can all see that.
Yes, I think you're good to go, Carter.
Perfect. So thank you to the chair and members of the committee. Staff are pleased to present for consideration case H00562, the 2023-2024 program year of the Financial Incentives Program for Schmidtville and Old South Suburb Heritage Conservation Districts. So a little summary of the program. The Financial Incentives Program supports conservation of contributing heritage resources and revitalization of existing buildings located within 2 heritage conservation districts, those being the Schmidtville Heritage Conservation District and the Old South Suburb Heritage Conservation District. The program guidelines and budget were approved by Regional Council on March 23rd of 2021, and they're embodied in Administrative Order 2020-005 ADM. The program runs for 5 consecutive fiscal years, beginning with fiscal year 2021-2022 and ending in fiscal year 2025-2026. We are now midway through in 2023-2024. There are 2 types of grants under this program. The first is conservation grants. These are applicable to projects that preserve, rehabilitate, and restore character-defining elements on the exterior of contributing heritage resources, and they're awarded on a 50% cost-sharing basis for all eligible costs exclusive of HST. Applicants can receive a maximum of 2 grants per contributing heritage resource or existing building, and the maximum cumulative grant over the lifetime of the program is $50,000. The second type of grant offered in this program are functional improvement grants. These are applicable to projects that improve the overall quality of existing building systems, so things like HVAC, electrical, plumbing, accessibility, and other elements essential to the functioning of the building. They're awarded on a 15% cost sharing basis for all eligible costs, again, exclusive of HST. And one can be awarded a maximum of 2 grants per contributing heritage resource or existing building, with a maximum cumulative grant over the lifetime of the program of $800,000. And conservation work can, of course, spill over from the conservation grant applicability into the functional improvement grant applicability. So essentially, if the costs of a conservation grant, if the costs of exterior conservation work exceeds $100,000, then the work exceeding $100,000 can be eligible for a functional improvement grant of whatever is in excess. So the evaluation process in this current fiscal year, we received applications from January 1st to March 1st of 2023. Staff ensured that all eligibility criteria in the administrative order were satisfied, and staff scored and ranked each application based on the set criteria. The anticipated cumulative grant payout for the 2023-2024 program year is $148,034.57. The aforementioned prioritization criteria are now before you. They consist of the following: whether the building is identified in the application as a contributing heritage resource, whether it is a first-time application, whether the application is supported by a building conservation plan, whether the application is preserving structural building components, such as foundation or roof repairs rather than cosmetic improvements, whether the application is with respect to a rehabilitation or restoration project that improves the integrity of the building by introducing or revealing character-defining elements that may have been lost, whether the application proposes the conservation of features visible to the public rather than features that are obscured, whether the application is submitted as one of two or more applications for buildings that are on abutting properties. So this would be like semi-detached buildings. And finally, if the application is with respect to a building that is in poor condition and is at greater risk of deterioration or loss. And so in the case of answering yes to any of those criteria, a point will be awarded and a maximum of 5 points can be awarded to any given application. And that is then used to prioritize the applications. So a summary of this year, we received 9 applications for the program year 2023-2024. Only 1 application was ineligible. Again, the cumulative value is $148,034.57. And in this case, for this year, all eligible applications can be accommodated within the year's budget for the Financial Incentives Program. So the recommended grant recipients for this year's program include 1322 Birmingham Street, who are requesting a conservation grant, 50% for the repainting of the exterior of a semi-detached dwelling with a project cost of $15,181 and a proposed grant of half that. 1326 Birmingham Street, again, conservation grant at 50%, repainting the exterior of a semi-detached dwelling. So this is the other half of the same dwelling. And again, same project cost and same proposed grant. 1354 Birmingham Street, a functional improvement grant, 15% to install a natural gas hot water tank. 1328 Birmingham Street, a conservation grant at 50% to repair or replace the front door and transom with the preservation of exterior trim work and the corbels. 1300 Queen Street, a conservation grant and functional improvement grant. This is a fairly large project consisting of a second floor removal of the existing aluminum siding, removal of the existing 5 vinyl windows, removal of vinyl soffits and fascia, fabrication and installation of new wooden windows, installation of wooden soffits, fascia, and shingles on the exterior surfaces, and wall remediation and repair as required, with an estimated project cost of $122,778 and a proposed grant combined of conservation grant and functional improvement grant equaling to $53,416.70. Next, we have 5178 Bishop Street, who are requesting a conservation grant at 50% for the replacement of a rear landing and stairs. Again, like for like in materials and design. They are estimating the project cost at $3,760.22 and are requesting a proposed grant of $1,880.11. 1362 Queen Street, another combined conservation grant and functional improvement grant. This is for the replacement of the roof, siding, 19 windows and 2 exterior doors and foundation repairs. Again, a large project. The estimated project cost is $192,000 and the proposed grant combined of conservation and improvement is $63,800. And 1261 to 63 Barrington Street, this is a request for a functional improvement grant at 15% for repair of the brick masonry at the front of the building, where you can see the greenery there. The estimated project cost for repairs and repointing of that brick is $26,840, and the proposed grant is $4,026. So the recommendation is now before the committee for consideration. Thank you.
So, interesting. They want to speak to this recommendation at this time? I have one question. The last one wasn't 50% of the cost. Was there a reason for that, or?
Yes. So the last one, 126163, is that correct? The one that you were referring to?
That's the one. Yes, that's right.
Yes. So since this is proposed work being done to a modern portion of the building, specifically the front planter here, then we can't issue a conservation grant. We can only issue a functional improvement grant.
Oh, got it. Okay, thank you.
No problem.
Just got stood out from the rest. We're doing that. Do I have a motion that we recommend this to council?
Well, I'll make the motion.
Thank you
I
very
so
much.
move to approve the proposed grant applications 24001 through 24-005 and 24-007 through 24-009 listed in attachment A, conditional upon the applicant's compliance with section 7 and 36-39 of the administrative order number 2020-005 ADM, and the requirements specified in attachment A being satisfied.
Thank you, David. Very complete. Do I have a seconder for that?
I second.
Oh, thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'll call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Any those opposed? Motion passed. 9.1.2 is the case plan for substantive amendment to a development agreement 2720 on Goderton Street, Halifax, and our staff member Seamus is here to speak to that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Seamus.
I just shared my screen, Mr. Chair. Are you able to see that?
I can.
Great. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. This is a case for an amending development agreement for property at 2720 Goderton Street, known as the Narrows Public House. So the application was made by the existing owners, Patrick Kane and Miles Baldwin, who own and operate the restaurant known as the Narrows Public House at this location along Goderton Street, just north of the McDonald Bridge. The original development agreement was established under Heritage Development Agreement Policy 6.8. And for it to operate a commercial establishment restaurant within a residential neighborhood. So the development agreement that was adopted in 2018 allows them to operate a restaurant that would not be normally be allowed under the underlying zone in the property, on the condition that they fully repaired and conserved the heritage building, which was designated in 2015 on the property. So this current application is now to extend the commercial use of the restaurant into a small portion of the rear yard as a patio, sort of a rear patio. So the subject property here is identified with a red arrow. Is located within the established residential designation of the regional center plan. The regional center plan replaced a previous plan, the Halifax municipal planning strategy, only a few years ago. The ER designation is located across the street from an institutional designation, the Halifax Canadian Forces Base Stadacona. It's also located north of a higher order designation, right where the Northwood Manor is located. And north of this designation, there are corridor designations which extend all the way to the Hydrostone Market. So this stretch is the only stretch of established residential along Gottingen Street between the bridge and the Hydrostone Market. Here is another visual looking west. So you see here Canadian Forces Base Stadacona and the Admiralty House, which is operated as the Naval Museum, located directly across from the Narrows Public House and other institutional buildings, the old gym, which has been demolished, the other institutional buildings, Northwood Manor, which is a residential care facility located right at the corner across from the McDonald Bridge, and there's another commercial use known as Hum Yum Pizzas at the corner here of Gottingen Street. Another contextual view looking east this time, you see the much of the residential neighborhood here, established residential neighborhood with properties and houses dating back to the 19th century, late 19th century, early 20th century, known as Bloomfield. This neighborhood is identified in the regional center plan as a future study area for a potential heritage conservation district. And the subject property, along with the other older buildings along this stretch of Gottingen Street, are contiguous with this neighborhood, this historic neighborhood. To the north here, you see some empty lots, which are part of the corridor designation. So a lot of demolition of traditional single detached dwellings and construction of new modern buildings in this stretch of Gottingen Street. Here you see a new modern building that just came up in recent years on the north block of just north of the subject property. The subject property again is identified on this picture with a red arrow, and it shows kind of this contiguous stretch of older buildings along Gottingen Street. And further north, 2 blocks north, you see some more sort of redevelopment of the corridor with lots of demolition occurring today along this stretch between the Hydrostone Market and the McDonald Bridge. So the current application is really focused on the rear portion of the subject property. The applicants are looking to extend the restaurant use into a portion of the rear yard, which is currently used as parking and utility space. So they want to introduce some quiet dining in the rear patio. The proposed amendment to the development agreement limits the hours of operation of the rear patio from 11 a.m. to 9:30 p.m. on weeknights. So Sunday through Thursday, the restaurant within the walls of the building will continue to be allowed to be operated until I believe it's 11 p.m. But the rear patio will have to close at 9:30 p.m. And on Friday and Saturdays, the rear patio will be limited to operating hours of 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., whereas inside the building, they will continue to be allowed to operate until 12 p.m. Just changes proposed in the amendments to the off-street parking requirements. So currently they need 6 off-street parking. We're reducing that to 4 with a requirement for a bicycle rack as well, which will contain up to 5 bicycles. So the subject property was registered as a heritage property back in 2015. It is protected under the provisions of the Nova Scotia Heritage Property Act. The building has been restored by the current owners who registered the building. There are no changes to the exterior of the building proposed as part of this application that would negatively affect the heritage value of the heritage property. The development agreement will continue to require ongoing maintenance to preserve the integrity and heritage value of the property. The amending development agreement is considered under policy CHR 7. So the original agreement was considered under 6.8 of policy 6.8 of the previous municipal planning strategy that was in effect. As mentioned, that the previous plan has been replaced by the regional center plan, and the new heritage development agreement policy is policy CHR 7. This policy allows owners of registered heritage properties to apply for a development agreement to permit uses and structures that would not normally be allowed under the underlying zone. In this case, the policy is used to amend an existing development agreement and to extend the commercial use of a property into an exterior patio. So in terms of the enabling policy and context for the land use bylaw, the property is located within the established residential designation. This designation is intended to retain the scale of existing low density residential neighborhoods while providing opportunities for additional housing units. The designation does include its own policy for a development agreement to allow the consideration of local commercial uses, such as restaurants. The subject property is currently zoned established residential ER1, and this zone limits permitted uses to single unit dwellings, secondary suites, backyard suites, small shared housing, bed and breakfast uses, home occupations, and home office uses. So in terms of the planning process for this particular application, a complete application was received for the planning application, an amendment to a development agreement. A detailed staff report was a detailed staff review took place with various divisions within planning and development. There was a public engagement aspect to this application where notifications were sent out, mailed out to adjacent property owners. A staff report was then prepared to summarize the internal staff review and comments received from the public. This report has been tabled with the Heritage Advisory Committee. That's where we are right now in the process. And the Heritage Advisory Committee will pass its recommendation today forward to the Halifax and West Community Council. This council will receive the application at a first reading and then schedule a public hearing. The public hearing will then take place prior to a decision by the Halifax and West Community Council. After a decision, there's a 14-day appeal period. And once this appeal period has expired, there will be then the property owner can apply for permits depending on the outcome of the case. In terms of public engagement feedback, as mentioned, notifications in the form of a postcard with details of this case were mailed out to 97 adjacent households. The notification provided the address of a web page with contents about the application. The public comments received were about 14 people responded to the notification, providing comments. About half of the comments were expressed concerns about the application in terms of noise, obnoxious behavior, customers, odors from the commercial kitchen, reduced privacy, property values for adjacent properties, and about half expressed support for the restaurant as an asset to the neighborhood, someplace to walk to go and enjoy within the neighborhood. Generally, the comments sort of expressing serious concern about this particular extension of the commercial use were from properties that were located closer to the subject property, whereas support was generally from properties located maybe a block or few away from the subject property.
Mhm.
In terms of consistency with relevant policies, as mentioned, the application is considered under policy CHR 7 of the Regional Center Plan. A key criteria of this policy is for the development to maintain the heritage value of the registered heritage property. The existing building is being retained and preserved. Since the original development agreement was adopted in 2018, all vinyl siding was removed from the rear, from the exterior of the property. Rotten wood was removed and replaced. The exterior of the building was scraped, primed, and painted. The roof and eave troughs were replaced. The foundation walls and chimneys were repointed, and the entire landscape was regraded, and the dry stack stone retaining walls were reinstated. There were many more costs associated with rehabilitating the interior of the building as a commercial use, and there are many more costs associated with the ongoing maintenance of this heritage property. An important criterion to consider under policy CHR 7 is also the impact on adjacent uses, particularly residential uses. As mentioned, the amending development agreement does propose to limit the hours of operation to between 11 a.m. and 9:30 p.m. on Sunday through Thursday, and between the hours of 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. The patio, the exterior patio that limits the use to 25 customers as well, and a new provision prohibits the use of amplified music anywhere on site. So no amplified music. There can be live music inside the building, but it can't be amplified. The development regulations in the proposed amending development agreement will adequately mitigate potential conflicts between the proposed development and nearby land uses. Any accessory uses have to take place within the walls of the building, such as washroom, office, kitchen, and so on, and as well as storage. There's also provision for a storage shed on the exterior of the property. The amending development agreement will continue to place requirements on fencing, outdoor lighting, landscaping, and vegetative buffering, and it will require a new provision to plant a line of trees between the patio and abutting properties as well. And finally, another criteria of policy CHR 7 is to consider that the proposal is consistent with the general vision, core concepts, and objectives of the regional center plan. And really looking at the established residential designation, so the objectives of the established residential designation where this subject property is located. An objective of the established residential designation is to support the retention, rehabilitation of the existing housing stock while creating opportunities for additional housing units. So CHR 7, because it requires the retention of a heritage property, is very much consistent with this objective of preserving existing residential stock. And another objective of this designation is to support complete communities and opportunities for home occupations and local commercial uses. So the development supports the retention of an existing building, and it supports the objective of complete communities in that it creates and supports a local commercial use in the form of a restaurant within the established residential neighborhood. The applicants could have applied under policy E5 of the regional center SMPS, which also allows for the consideration of local commercial uses, so long as they don't exceed 200 square meters in full area. And the total seating and dining area proposed under this application, including the interior and exterior commercial uses, will be approximately 160 square meters. And there's a provision in the amending agreement to not allow this commercial use to exceed 200 square meters. So consistent with the policy E5, the local commercial policy under the regional center SMPS. So staff have reviewed the proposal in terms of all relevant policy criteria and advised that the proposal is reasonably consistent with the intent of the regional center plan. The main purpose of policy CHR7 is to incentivize the retention and restoration of heritage buildings through additional land use flexibility. In this case, the property owner has agreed to measures that will limit the potential impacts of the development on neighboring properties, so that the extended use will support the retention and rehabilitation of existing housing stock along Gottingen Street, where there is a trend to tear down and rebuild in multi-unit dwellings. Staff recommend that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Halifax and West Community Council approve the proposed amending development agreement. And the recommendations, there's 3 recommendations, and they're summarized here on the slide. And you can find the full recommendations in the staff report. Thank you.
Thank you, Seamus. One just point of clarification, the tree lines they propose, is that for 3 sides of the property to the back?
The requirements for additional planting of trees, and let's go to a site plan here. So it'll be, the requirements are along the rear walls, the planting of 3 new trees that have to be 6 feet in height at the time of planting along the rear wall, and 1 new planting along the side here.
Okay.
And there will be vegetative buffering along here, and a fence
along there.
And a fence will be required along this stretch of the patio as well.
Okay. No, I just where the trees were going. Thank you. There we go. Thought I got lost there for a moment. Any discussion about this particular update? Comments?
If I could ask
Sure.
a question, Mr. Chair. We didn't see any photographs of the back part of the house or the surrounding properties. And I counted 5 surrounding properties that would be impacted. And I think 2 or maybe 3 of them are already additional heritage properties. Are there any photographs of the back part of the house?
Other than the aerial views, no,
That
there
would
are not.
help, Seamus.
Yeah, okay.
Could we
So
just see the?
Yeah, just the aerial views here. Just let me share my screen. So some contextual views here. So these are the abutting properties here. This is the registered heritage building, which is abutting the subject property. It's set back a little bit more than the subject property. The
We're
building.
not seeing your screen.
It's not sharing.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I didn't press share. That's why.
No, don't.
So yeah, so here you see the subject property, which is a registered heritage building just north of the subject property. Here's the subject property, and there's another building which is considerably closer to the road. This is an older building, but it's not registered. In terms of rear views of the property, it's a utility space currently used for parking, and you can't really get a good appreciation for the view here, but it's just you can see the setback here of the properties that abut it at the rear, and then there's some tree covering, some canopy in place already.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, it's Aaron Murnahan, Principal Heritage Planner here. I can share my screen if you like with a little bit more detailed aerial view if you'd like.
Great.
Thank you.
And I'll just need Dorothy to give me the ability to share.
Mhm.
Oh, you should be co-host now, Aaron.
Okay. So can everybody see that?
Much better. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent.
So from this view, Gaudgeon Street is to the top right, Northwood Terrace is to the bottom left. And you can see the subject property just in the center. So right now that area is all used as parking and storage. This is a little bit older photo, probably a couple years old. So there may have been some work done back there since. And you can see some single family homes and a multi-unit just to the bottom left. And that rear parking lot behind the neighboring heritage property is currently being developed with 2 single family homes.
And Northwood Terrace, directly behind Dr. Pacey's house.
Yes, that's the
There
house.
was a building removed. Is there anything there now? Do we know?
So where you see those 3 cars parked in that surface parking lot at the
Yes.
left-hand side, that is Dr. Pacey's, now Betty Pacey, his widow. That's her property, and she's developing 2 single-family homes on that parking lot as we speak.
And the red building to the right of the vacant lot, the red building is, I take it, a small apartment building?
That's correct, with
Yeah.
4 or 6 units in it.
And
correct.
the heritage properties are Betty Pacey's. And back on Northwood. Is there another heritage property there?
No, the only
Sorry, I'm a
2
little
are, if
confused.
you can see my cursor, is
Yes.
Betty Pacey's house and the subject property.
Okay. Okay.
Now, because she has subdivided what was once a very large heritage property into 3 lots, there are 2 technically registered properties back here, which we're going to get her to deregister once those buildings are complete.
Okay, that helps my thinking considerably.
So the greenhouse
thank
here is a multi-unit. This red property is multi-unit, this beige one and the yellow one just to the top are multi-units. Betty Pacey's house is vacant, and the blue and beige houses down here are single family homes.
Are what homes?
Single family homes.
Thank you. Thank you. That all helps.
So directly behind it, we have a multi-unit. And then, okay.
And the property line for the amending proposal that we're looking at, the property line is near that white car and some sort of a blue tarp, and it looks like
It would
a
actually be, the patio would be right along this fence line.
Okay. Yeah.
So right in this corner here would be a large shed, which would be built to obscure the patio. And the patio itself would be in this area right here where my cursor is.
Okay.
And they would retain 4 parking places.
That's
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And a bike rack. Yeah.
And there are no parking places in front at present.
There is just on-street parking, which to my knowledge is typically sufficient.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple of other questions, but I'll wait because some other people may wish to speak as well.
I'll leave this photo up in case.
Okay,
there's any
good idea.
questions.
Good.
Any other comments or questions? Lois, doesn't seem like there are, so if you want to continue.
Okay,
Sorry.
thank-
I just have one, I do
Oh,
have
sure.
a question.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, staff, can you help us understand, just from a process perspective, if the Heritage Advisory Committee rejects this, and votes it down, so it doesn't then get to Halifax and West, is there a way for the property owner to then send it directly to Halifax and West for consideration? I just think it's important for us to understand how this moves its way through to approval or reject.
For
I know
sure, yeah.
I know there's appeal. I know there's an appeal process, but that's from Halifax and West decision.
Yes, of course, yeah. So this development agreement is being processed under the charter, HRM charter, and the policies of the regional center plan. It's not actually a heritage application. It's more of a development application under the policies of the plan affecting a heritage property. So any recommendation from the Heritage Advisory Committee will be forwarded, whether it's a recommendation in support or against the staff recommendation. The recommendation of HAC will be forwarded to the Halifax and West Community Council, and it'll be up to that council to review HAC's recommendation and the staff recommendation, and to decide whether or not to hold a public hearing for this application.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that all of the members were aware of that process. Thank you.
Yeah. So Lois, other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, while this slide is up, the greenhouse to the right seems to have 3 gardens behind it. I'm just wondering what that is. Seamus or Aaron, could you elaborate on that?
The last time that I checked, there were 2 residential units in that building, and to my knowledge, they're currently being used for short-term rental.
Okay, and then in behind, those are gardens or something belonging to somebody?
I believe it's just rear yard landscaping for that house. There might be a garden of some sort.
Okay, and a fence there. Then if I could indulge people's patience again for a moment, can we look at the architectural proposal for the patio? The drawing?
Yeah, so I could share my screen. It's basically what they're proposing is just paver, stone pavers. There's not going to be any kind of wood structure flooring. Yeah, it's going to be just a stone patios at grade with a wooden storage shed. So those are the only structures that will be going in place, and there may be a trellis put up as well to provide shade for the patio, but that will all be done. All of those structures will be done in accordance with the land provisions of the existing land use bylaw. So the existing underlying land use bylaw will cover the setback requirements, everything structural.
Okay, and could we look at that diagram again? Excuse me, the
Sure.
architectural drawing.
Yeah,
Blueprint.
there's a site plan that I could show you here. I'll need to share my screen again here. Click share this time. If you can see that, let's go forward here. I believe it's, yeah. So this is the yeah. So it will just these would just be paver stones, which will be sort of installed at grade, and there will be a storage shed in the shape of an L to screen the patio from abutting properties to the west and to the south. There's also a proposal to stack firewood and put vegetation along the southern portion of the patio here as well, and a 6-foot fence. This is a requirement of the development agreement. A 6-foot fence must be constructed between the patio and the sort of utility parking area here. These stairs leading up to the units above are in place now at the rear of the property. And they lead up to the residential units at the second and top level.
Thank you. I have a couple of comments. I have been to establishments like this in Toronto, and they were quite delightful. They were very secluded. The restaurant faced on Queen East, and the patio area was out behind, and it was an older home or whatever on Queen East, and it had this it was small and it was secluded, and it had a higher fence than is proposed here. That is 6 or 8 feet? I think it's 8 feet. The one that I experienced, the main one that I'm thinking of, was probably 10 feet, and you could not see over it. And it had vines and plantings that obscured everything. So some consideration might be recommended for taller privacy fence, bearing in mind, yes, that you have said it's governed by a bylaw requirement. You're limited to 6'6". I didn't know that. You learn something new every day. So this one's going to be 8. Yeah, that's interesting. And my second comment would be, I read in several places that they were proposing 40 customers. And I looked at this and thought, yeah, I guess that's 40. But now, Seamus, you say it's been reduced to 25, which makes me a little happier. But I'm thinking that the footprint could be smaller yet. I think this drawing was designed when I tried to read the fine print. Okay, I'm reading Councillor Hensby's notes here. When I read the fine print, it looked like it was designed for the 40, but I stand to be corrected on that. If the number has been reduced to 25, the footprint for this terrace patio, and I like the sound and description of it, but the footprint might be commensurately reduced. And thank you for your patience.
Thank you for the question. The number of customers in the development agreement, in the amending development agreement, is proposed at 25 total. And so the total area, the seating area, is also limited to 75 square meters on the exterior. So 75 square meters and 25 customers maximum.
The shed is quite large, judging by the dimensions.
The principal one I'm thinking of in Toronto was quite small. I think maybe it could take 20 max. Very secluded.
As Councillor Hensby said, it does reflect 30 patrons here, but that's on this concept piece.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah.
Then possibly the footprint. Thank you, Councillor Hensby. The footprint could possibly be reduced if it's only going to be 25. And I'm thinking if the footprint were reduced, it might be more accepted by the neighbors. I am concerned that this is an absolutely residential neighborhood in the immediate perimeter. Old, established, mixed residential housing. I have no problem with the restaurant and the work that they've done on the house. I think it's remarkable. I'd love to see that kind of adaptive reuse. Moving out to a patio, I believe one does have to be very careful of the neighborhood and the community around and its old established patterns and rhythms. One thing to have a barbecue in your backyard. This may be quite different.
Any other comments? Oh, none so being.
Oh, Councillor
Um,
Hinsby
Check
has
the
one.
chat room.
Oh, sorry.
Check the chat room.
Missed you.
I'm curious about, it talks about firewood storage and stuff. I'm not sure, but what is the rules that in that area for outdoor open air burning? I don't know if they're allowed chimnelas or they're planning to have, like, I would have thought they would have had propane fire tables or heater lamps, but I'm curious about this outdoor fire storage that's being shown there is, what are they planning to burn?
Thanks for the question. Anything that's not expressly provided for within the development agreement or in the proposed amending development agreement will have to be subject to the underlying land use bylaw. So if they're allowed to store firewood there under the underlying land use bylaw, then it will be allowed. And if not, then they simply will not be allowed. So we really left this up to as sort of an as of right in terms of structures or anything to do with burning firewood. If they, as residents of this established residential area, are allowed to burn, do outdoor burning, then it'll be we're essentially leaving it up to the land use bylaw and underlying zone. But the development agreement doesn't include anything with regard to outdoor burning.
So the stacking could be decorative or for in-use fireplaces.
Yeah,
Mr.
so I was
Chair,
wondering
I'll just,
if they have indoor fireplaces there or not.
Yes, there is an indoor fireplace. Yes.
Okay, so that was satisfy the firewood storage.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Aaron Murnahan, again, just wanted to chime in quickly. And just to confirm, based on my knowledge of the property, there is already significant wood storage there for the two working fireplaces that they use in the restaurant.
Mhm.
But just as well wanted to remind the committee that the purview of HAC is mainly the heritage considerations of the proposal. Whereas the Halifax and West Community Council will be debating quite closely any of the planning considerations. Not to say that you can't speak to those, but just reminding the committee that that should be your main point of discussion.
So what's historical about a backyard parking lot? Just joking. I think this outdoor patio would be an excellent addition to the facility.
Do we have a motion that we will forward this with our recommendation to the community council?
The motion in the chat, there it is.
Didn't come up for me yet, that's all.
If I make the motion for you, Mr. Chairman, that the Heritage Advisory Committee recommend that Halifax and West Community Council one give notice. A motion to consider proposed amending development agreement as set out in attachment A of the staff report dated May 17th, 2023 to allow the extension of a restaurant use into the rear yard of an existing building located at 2720 Goddard Street, Halifax, and schedule public hearing. 2, approve the proposed amending development agreement, which shall be substantially the same form as set out in attachment A of the staff report. And 3, require the agreement be signed by the property owners within 120 days or longer if warranted, or any other extension thereof granted by council, and request the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereon shall be at an end.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that. David?
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? None so being, it's passed.
And if I
Um,
can,
Sure, Lois.
if I can add my voice here at the end, I want to thank Aaron. That overhead of the back areas changed my mind. I came into the meeting thinking one thing, and that helped to change it. The heritage restoration of the building is fantastic. This will, I think, add to it with minimum disruption to the community. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Seamus. Both very helpful.
We'll make sure to include that slide in the community council presentation. So thank you for asking for it.
Yeah. Yeah, it certainly makes it clear that there's minimal impact. Everyone's just crowded around there. It makes a big difference. Next, we have membership updates. Ken Smith and David Patterson resigned from the committee in May. Lizzie Lewis joined. Unfortunately, she couldn't be with us today, and that is her membership is effective this meeting. We'll be having an additional Heritage Committee meeting on June the 28th. It'll be held virtually so that we can clean up any business before the great summer weather begins, if it ever begins, and when it might be difficult to get a quorum. So our next meeting will be live on June the 14th.
I thought June 14th, we're having an in-person meeting at the
That's right.
Harbor Drive Community Council.
That's right, live from 1 to 3 p.m. on that date. We had initially looked at 3 to 5, but there was a cross booking with rooms, and we're now at 1 to 3 on that date. And I look forward to actually seeing everybody. Yes.
I just wanted to clarify that June 28th is an additional meeting to the June 14th. So there are 2 meetings in June.
Yes, yep. That was what I was saying. We added that so that we would clean up a loose business before summer, and it might be difficult to get a quorum. So we have 2 meetings in June. That's correct. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone for showing up, and we will see you in person at our next meeting.
Thank
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 you
you,
all.
staff.
Have a good evening.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, bye.